hi everyone. Welcome to another Astro update with myself and astrologer Babula Clement. And hi Babula, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, great, wonderful. We decided to have a little bit of fun with our backgrounds because it's Halloween. And even though it's not really Halloween in Australia, but we just thought we'd just get in the mood anyway because there's some pretty surprising, what would you say, shocking, lightning strikes coming our way, but all starting with this full moon in Taurus. So full moon, blue moon, Halloween. What's going on, Babula?
Where do we start? My God. So this full moon is quite a lot to say about it, really. It's a doozy, as we say. You know, it sort of brings out those kinds of words. I mean, every year, of course, when we're in the month of Scorpio, which we are now, the sun's now in Scorpio, and the full moon cycle, when the sun's in Scorpio, will always be in Taurus. So every year at this time, we have this full moon across the Taurus-Scorpio axis. And it's always a potent time anyway. The Scorpio month is always a very potent, deep, transformative, often quite challenging time. You know, there's a great deal of deep purging going on individually and in the collective. And when the full moon comes in opposition to that Scorpio sun, it is always a strong full moon. This one, however, takes the cake because this particular full moon forms an exact conjunction with the planet Uranus. So the full moon is exactly 8 degrees of Taurus, conjunct Uranus at 8 degrees of Taurus, opposite the sun at 8 degrees of Scorpio. So anybody with planets around those degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, also the other two fixed signs on the square, which would be Leo and Aquarius, so around those early degrees, this full moon is particularly significant, and it can really be like a trigger, an activator, and a bringer of tremendous change, because Uranus is a powerful energy and it represents many things, but its energy is like seismic shock waves, sudden changes that just appear to come out of nowhere, but they haven't really come out of nowhere. It's just that in the moment, it's like, where did that come from? Why is this happening all of a sudden? But there's always a sort of a prelude, you know, there are always things leading up to this point, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, there was an earthquake in Turkey yesterday, a significant quake. It is a land prone to quakes. And Uranus in nature governs earthquakes, so it carries earthquake energy. But if we look at earthquake as a metaphor as well for all those seismic shocks that we at times experience in our lives and in the collective field, I mean, it's been a year of it in a way, but the year has really belonged to the planets in Capricorn. Uranus has been there operating in the background always, but he hasn't been a key player in the story of 2020. Uranus will be very important in 2021. But this full moon right now, I think, is a kind of a sort of a prelude, a sort of a preparation, if you like, for us to attune to that Uranian energy. And Uranus, of course, is the ruling planet of the sign of Aquarius. And this whole, everything that's going on is all about the shift in consciousness into the Aquarian age.
Yeah. So it's like, is it like when you're talking about earthquakes for us as individuals, it's like soul quakes?
Yes, soul quakes.
Yeah.
And it can come as shocks, like literally shock waves, and it can be shocking revelations, or something happens very suddenly with no warning, or although sometimes if we're really paying attention to the lead up, we see the signs, we see the cracks. But if we're not paying attention, whatever takes place can appear to be just like a sudden absolute shock. And sometimes we humans seem to need shocks.
We do. We need to be disturbed out of our comfort zones,
We
don't we?
definitely do. And that's Uranus's job. That's what he's about. And it isn't always easy because he's also the revolutionary impulse. Uranus is very much the planet of upheaval, chaos, disruption, breakup, breakdown, breakthrough, shattering. He's not like Neptune is powerful, but it's much more subtle, and it's feeling, and it's mystical and a bit nebulous and hard to put your finger on. But Uranus is like really knows how to make its presence felt. And so people who are naturally aligned with Uranian energy, you'll see it in the chart. There might be a lot of Aquarius, very strong placements of the planet Uranus. They can experience this energy as quite exciting, actually.
Yeah.
It can feel exciting and liberating and, wow, this is great. This change needed to happen. This is terrific. And others will be reeling from, like, it can feel so jarring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really a hard thing to take and to accept and integrate because, like it's things like, when someone suddenly, and you hear this all the time, in one moment they've broken their ankle. What seems like a silly thing that's just happened, like, my God, why did I put my foot down there? And suddenly, and that's a Uranian moment. And very often, if you look at the chart of that moment, you'll see Uranus was very triggered by something at that moment. So it's events like that, the sudden collision of cars, crash.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something I did to myself a few years ago where I was just winding up the hose. And silly me, I don't know how it happened. It got entwined around my ankles. And as I reefed the hose, I pulled myself over onto the concrete. Like,
I know.
Just out of the blue.
That's right. And it seems like, what just happened, Yep. So it's like that, but it can be dramatic. And in the collective feel, given the year that we're having, and there's so many layers of things that are moving in all directions and in all domains, it seems. Well, not it seems, I think it actually is. This energy being activated so strongly at this very potent full moon anyway, at the time of, we're having our Queensland elections right now. New Zealand's just had one last weekend, and the US election, which is a hugely pivotal election, at this time, so people are voting as we speak.
Yes.
And it's so interesting to me how often elections are held at times when there's a bit of kind of crazy energy around and Mercury's retrograde. And so it's like, it's virtually impossible to predict an outcome here because the energy of Uranus is so unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a wild card, it is the wild card in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. And it actually, I find that people who have that strong Aquarian placement, they actually say things that I'm sure that they say things just for the shock value. They want to shock you. Not sure why.
That's right.
They just want to shock you. And you go, what? Did you just say what I thought you said?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I think it's, there's an outrageousness about it, which can be experienced as something great and thrilling, or it can be really disturbing, But as I said earlier, and, I think we humans need to be shocked. We need to be shocked out of our complacency and our deep snooze. All the mystics have said for so long, humanity is fast asleep.
Yeah.
And, that's the language they use. And when we speak of things like enlightenment, we call it awakening, it's literally waking up. And that's Uranus. I remember when I first learned astrology, one of the first things I read about the planet Uranus was that it was being referred to as the Great Awakener.
Yeah.
And that's its role. And it doesn't happen easily, and we don't always like it. We don't always want to be woken up. We like to sleep. Don't disturb me. I'm comfortable here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It just seems to be the human nature, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. We have this kind of inbuilt inertia. And what's so interesting when I say inertia is that Taurus is a fixed earth sign, and from 2018, for 7 to 8 years, the planet Uranus is slowly moving through the sign of Taurus, which is fixed earth and wants to literally tie everything down. On one level, that's not all Taurus is about, but on one level, it is about that. If you think of, all those people listening who have strong Taurus in their energy, there's a deep need for stability and security, which is one of the great gifts of Taurus.
Yeah.
To actually bring stability, and stability is not a bad thing, but Uranus is this is not a time for stability. This is a time for upheaval.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And one of the things,
Cracking open.
yeah, one of the things,
Yeah.
or some of the things that Taurus governs is, food and money. I've
Yes.
seen that there's been some food shortages in China, which is completely unexpected because of the, they've had terrible weather over there, all sorts of the calamities happening there.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
just for that to happen, all those people who they need to feed, now they have a bit of a food shortage, and they've even started a clean your plate campaign where students are given cards, and every time they finish their plate, they get a stamp, and every time they get 10 stamps, they get a free meal. So it's serious. Yeah.
Just to not waste food.
That's right. So it's no surprise that this is coming together, and we're seeing that already.
That's right. And I remember, as Uranus was moving into Taurus, I did a couple of talks and lectures about it because I'm really interested in it and wondering how it's all going to play out. But it was issues like agriculture, food security, the natural environment. I did a lot of research on it because this was just a topic I was fascinated by, this planet moving into Taurus. And I saw that a lot of environmental activists in the world are actually born, even like 80 years ago, with Uranus in Taurus. And it's this revolutionary impulse to change the way we grow food, harvest food, distribute food, to reconnect us back to the natural world and so on, because we become so separated from it in so many ways. So the financial system, our own finances, people might, over these few days, there might be some sudden shocks and surprises around finances. I often think of Uranus and Taurus too as reversals of fortune. So some people might suddenly get rich, like win the lotto or something. I bought my ticket for tonight. And or some people might, like something may crash for them financially. There's a lot of instability with this.
Yeah. Very interesting. So I know you've talked about the blue moon before. It's just for those who are tuning in for the first time. Could you just give people an idea of the, is there any significance in a blue moon?
There's not really, except to say there is a deep significance in that there are 13 lunar months of a year. In the world of nature and natural rhythms that we human beings are meant to be aligned with and attuned with on this planet, and this is how nature operates, there are actually 13 lunar months in a year. But a long time ago, the powers that be decided to play around with this and distort this and kind of crammed 12 months into the year, completely disassociating from the natural lunar rhythm. So that in that sense, it's significant. So what I'm leading to is that a blue moon is simply when in 1 month of the year, there will be 2 new moons or full moons in the same sign, because we're trying to fit 13 lunar months into 12 calendar months. So our man-made calendar is not the true natural calendar. So that in itself is highly significant. And I think it's contributed in a way to our to the distortion of time and our connection to nature, that we're just not even aware of this half the time. So, I mean, people who garden by the lunar calendar are completely aware of this.
Yes.
Fishermen are aware of this. People who are on the land and connected, Indigenous cultures are fully aware of these natural 13 lunars, and 13 is often regarded as a feminine number, which, was reviled, of course, as the number of the witch, and it had a certain sort of evil connotation. But and we've got these images of Halloween behind us while I'm saying this. This is so funny. But, like in that way, it's true. But in terms of a blue moon itself, really has no other significance than there are two new full moons in the same sign, and one will be in the early part of the sign, the other one will be at the end of the sign. So yeah, so that's the story behind it.
Behind the blue moon.
That's the story behind it.
I was thinking last night, now who was that? Because that famous song Blue Moon.
On the blue moon.
Yeah, was it Eartha Kitt who sang that?
The moon. That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who sang it.
No, I do remember that, curiously, that the old TV show back in the 80s, I think it was, Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd and
Yes.
What's his name? Willis, yes. Bruce Willis.
That's the one.
She sang that in one of the episodes.
Oh.
Blue Moon in the show Moonlighting. I thought that was quite cute.
Yes. But what did how we use that term, once in a blue moon, it just means that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, that's right.
But it does happen once a year. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and it is interesting that this is happening at, Halloween, All Hallows. We're in the Southern Hemisphere, so that's not, actually correct technically, of course, but we still, as a festival, we're starting to celebrate it down here. So yes, it's the other thing, before we move on, I want to also say something on another full moon. It's like that's when the moon is at her fullness. She's full of light. And so always at a full moon, consciousness is high and strong. And so our sleep can be disturbed and, like boing, everything's awake, and nature is fully on, the switch is on. Uranus isn't only about disruption and chaos and, cracks and breakdowns and so on. It's also about consciousness. And it's a high energy. It's like this energy of lightning, lightning strikes. We wake up or receive a piece of information, these shock waves go through, but it can be an awakening process. And it's like, Uranus to me is like this great antenna that's plugged into the cosmos, and in Taurus, there's this wonderful image I feel with this planet going through Taurus, is that if we're really grounded and earthed in our bodies and on the planet, walking barefoot on the ground and feeling that sense of being earth, then we can open our bodies and our nervous systems and our brains and our chakras to, receiving this tremendous input of energy, literally from the galaxies and the cosmos, because that's actually what's happening. That's what's happening all year. This is like another big piece of that, a big acceleration of that. So I think it's really helpful to use the Taurus energy to be grounded.
Yeah.
Whatever that means for each of us. And to if you're sitting in meditation, you sit with that sense of, I'm on the floor, I'm on the ground, feeling that, and then open, to receiving all this energy, and it can be incredible.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sort of paint a picture only that it's like beware everybody, this could get really kind of wild and difficult, because it's actually an amazing energy of consciousness and awakening and light.
Except that Taurus could help to ground people, though.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think we need to use that, that strong, when you look at Taurian people, their bodies are strong. You can just see it in the way they stand and walk. You can feel that earthed energy that they have, so you can take a lesson from that, and borrow something, tune in, connect to that energy, that grounding, and then open, like not to close off then, and then open to the cosmos, literally, and to this high vibration energy.
So if
It's
people
literally lighting up our chakras and nervous brains.
If people have felt a bit smashed around from everything that's gone on this year, they could go out and do some moon bathing tonight and tomorrow night, isn't it?
Exactly.
When is the full moon exactly?
Yes, well, in Brisbane, and we're not in daylight saving, so for southern states, you'd need to make that adjustment for an hour. But where we are here in Queensland, it's just after midnight on early morning the 1st.
Oh, right, yeah.
Early morning the 1st, it's around about 10 to 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
So that means on the night of the 31st, and into the 1st, which is right on Halloween. And that in itself is another amazing thing about this full moon, that it's right on Halloween, which is said to be a time when the veils have thinned and there's this access to other dimensions, which is so Uranian anyway. It's so interdimensional, Uranus. We have to get cosmic when we speak of Uranus. So this is a very interesting moment in time, and I think it's and it can bring in revelations, disclosures, shockwaves in that way. But I think it's, if we see it as like a prelude of more things to come in 2021.
So we could do some moon bathing to help stabilize ourselves. I've also done an exercise in that we put a bowl of filtered water out under the full moon and then drank that. You drink that over the next few days. So it gets into your system and helps bring the energy of that particular full moon into your system.
Beautiful, and a beautiful time too to be getting crystals outside and get them charged. Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the skies are clear, amazing time to be out there and just, feeling the power of the earth underneath our feet and Gaia and how she's so alive and her pulse beating, but to open up to those universal cosmic, to the stars, literally.
Yeah. Now, if we were in the northern hemisphere, because down here it's Beltane, I think it is now.
Yes.
And northern hemisphere, it's All Hallows Eve. Or is there another name? I can't quite remember now. But would it be more powerful in the northern hemisphere as opposed to the southern hemisphere this full moon, or does it matter?
Because of All Hallows and Halloween? I don't think so. No, not necessarily, because this moment in the seasonal calendar is that midway point between our spring equinox and the summer solstice. So it's literally, and in the northern hemisphere too, it's the midway point between the equinox and the solstice, whether we're in the north or the south. So it's one of those important turning points. So yeah, it might just have a slightly different quality in the north hemisphere because it is All Hallows, so it has a different energy because they're in a different seasonal, they're in the opposite seasons. But still powerful.
So is there anything else, dare I ask? I always cringe when I ask you this question. Is there anything else that the planets have in store for us over the next few weeks?
Yes. The first 2 weeks of November are quite strong. There's quite a lot happening. So on the 4th of November, Mercury turns direct again and everyone goes, yay. So, Mercury turned retrograde in Scorpio. That's been pretty intense. Then it sort of slipped back into the last few degrees of Libra, which is where it is now. Now, what I want to say about that, astrologically speaking, on the 2nd, so pretty much kind of now and on the full moon, Mercury retrograde is making a square to Saturn, as we know is in Capricorn. So Mercury in Libra, square Saturn on the 2nd. Mercury turns direct on the 4th. Then on the 6th, Mercury now direct makes another square with Saturn. But I actually wouldn't separate them. I would say all during the first week of November, as Mercury stations to turn direct again, it's making this strong square to Saturn. So that happening all at the same time is an important piece. And I think, one of the things we could say about Mercury Saturn, especially the square, is facing hard facts, like information that causes us to have to stop and go, oh, and take stock and deal with things. It can also be highly productive. People often find Mercury square Saturn, Mercury Saturn aspects, the mind can really focus, be highly productive, get organized, and so on. So Mercury is quite strong now because it's coming to the end of the retrograde. But as it's doing that, it's making these squares to Saturn. So some people might experience that too as being a bit heavy.
Yeah.
Like mentally a bit heavy. But it can be, I think, a good time for focus and, disciplining the mind and getting productive on a project or getting some work done, doing your taxes, whatever, catching up on those kinds of things.
With Saturn, though, does that bring endurance for people?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that can help people's, I guess, thinking, which affects your perspective to, have that endurance to get through something, perhaps?
That's right. Saturn, that's a really good point. Saturn does. It does give us inner strength and endurance and, just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And doing what needs to be done. Because we all have, most of us have certain circumstances that require, a commitment to, whether it's family, business, work, job, and so on, health, it's just what I have to do.
Yeah, that's part of living as a human, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
in this three-dimensional realm, and so even as consciousness shifts and moves in and out of 3D, 5D, we actually live in a 3D dimension. Well, up until now anyway, but so that's a kind of that earthly domain in these bodies.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's an important piece. Venus, lovely Venus. I say lovely Venus. I mean, because we always have those images of all the paintings and statues of Venus. She's always this image of, absolute beauty. And she is, you see her in the night sky, just divine. Venus is very happily in her own sign of Libra now. So Venus came into Libra, not just a number of days ago, I forget the exact day. So she's like, great, I'm in my own sign. And we know how much Librans have a natural capacity to create beauty and balance and harmony. That's what this sign's about. And it's a big piece of what Libra's about. Libra's also about the law, because it's also a sign that's very strongly passionate about justice. Like balance, harmony, what is just, what is right, equilibrium. So in Libra, during this full moon, and as we speak, Venus is in an opposition to Chiron in Aries. On the 10th of November, she'll be opposite Mars in Aries. So because we have planets in Aries, Libra in Venus is making the opposition. And we've spoken of this balance between these two signs before. It's very interesting looking at the polarity. So, Aries is all fire and go and warrior energy and action and, let me at it. And Libra is more gracious, harmonizing, cooperative, considering, both sides of an issue, two people's points of view, considering the needs of the other. Aries is impatient, hasn't got time for that, just wants to get on with it. So, you know, there's this potential for a bit more harmonizing. And what's so interesting is that Venus is the feminine, women, Mars is the masculine, man, inner and outer. So they are making an opposition on the 10th and around those days in their own signs. So that they're like particularly strong. Mars is in his own fiery sign of Aries, very yang energy.
Yeah.
Venus is in her own sign of Libra. You know, it's much more to do with the feminine, even though technically Libra is not actually a feminine sign.
Mm.
But there is this very strong sense of the potential for more of a harmonizing of those polarities within ourselves.
Mm.
You know, like if we're only in line with the Mars and energy, then we're angry all the time, and we're like we're feeling feisty and fiery, and Venus says, no, maybe just slow down and wait and listen and consider your options. You don't always have to rush headlong into everything.
Mm.
So that's going on.
So that's on the 10th, isn't it? I think I was reading this morning that for us in Australia, Queensland is opening its borders to New South Wales, except for Sydney. So there's that easing of restrictions too, which also might help to balance out quite a few things, you know, with Mercury going direct and the Mars and Venus energy.
Right.
Yeah, and then we'll get the results of the election, and yeah.
That's right. And yeah, there's definitely an energy of change. And as we know, as we move towards December, there's going to be more significant energetic shifts and changes. So there's something kind of moving, and this full moon is an indicator of something's going to change, you know, and there can be sudden, unexpected developments on many, many, many fronts.
Yes.
And people, they say, wow, didn't see that coming. Even when we know about these energies,
yeah,
we can still have, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Including the weather too.
Including the weather.
There's been some really bad weather in southeast, you know, along the coast, southeast Queensland.
And it's wild. Uranus is a wild energy. It's not something we can tame and control.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the 11th of November, Mercury, now in direct motion, will come back into Scorpio, because remember it retrograded through Scorpio back into Libra. Then as it comes forward, it will go back into Scorpio and be in Scorpio for about 4 weeks. So that's a deep energy, Mercury in Scorpio. It's like we always take a deep dive down into the underbelly.
I like that.
I know, and so do I.
Yeah.
And, you know, the sun is in Scorpio. We're in the Scorpio time of year. Late October, November is the Scorpio time of year when we get to do a purging. Like even for our health, it can be a good time to just clean up the diet a bit. Like you might even want to just do juice for a day, or go on a really serious cleanse, or you know, cut out certain foods that, you know, maybe processed that you just, you know, aren't helping. This is a really good time. Because it's a time of purging and release.
Yeah.
And a release of toxins, physically, emotionally, psychically, collectively, politically, you name it, you know, like let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's face these dark shadows. And that's the only way they can be purged. So it's a sort of a meeting with those darker energies in a way, but it's, again, you know, we're all wired up differently. People who are naturally a bit scorpionic and plutonic go, yes.
Yeah. So
right.
I think this year there's been a lot of that energy building up because there's lots of it, but and as it gets released, but there's still the bruising of that within people, if you could say it like that. And the anger, the hatred of everything that's going on, and being so frustrated and by the silliness and nonsensical decisions made about all sorts of things, or things that have got double standard. I mean, that bruises people to the soul level. you know.
It does.
So that's got to be released.
That's right. And that's right. And we have to go there and meet it and face it. And that's a really great description, the bruising. I think there's a kind of, I think a lot of people are feeling a bit traumatized, shell-shocked, shattered, exhausted. You know, it's been a very, very intense year. But I would say that even though next year is a real change of energy, we're not out of the woods. There is still a lot to come for humanity. There's a lot to be processed before we can really move into a new time. It's going to take some time, you know.
Yeah, over the next few years. Yeah.
That's right. It's been so potent. So, as I said, the first 2 weeks of November, like day by day by day, on the 13th, we have the third and last exact conjunction of Jupiter with Pluto. That's right. Now, and this is an important piece too, because, you know, and when I say that's the date of the exact conjunction, remember, these are slow-moving planets. So all year, Jupiter and Pluto have been close together and dancing with each other. But there are specific times when they make an exact conjunction, when they absolutely meet. And so on the 13th of November, this is the third of three. And Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, Jupiter, the planet of truth, optimism, seeking, searching, meets Pluto, the lord of the underworld and the kind of dark underbelly of everything, in Capricorn, the sign of systems and structures and organizations. This is an important, it's almost like it marks a completion in a way. It's not that on that date there will be a completion, but energetically it's marking around this time through November. It's almost a sense of, are we seeing what's really happening yet? You know, like, because I think it's been such a year for all of us, wherever we sit in this story of 2020, we have all been through so much. We have all learnt, discovered things about the world we live in and about ourselves and people around us, like at such a rate this year. And I think the Pluto-Jupiter piece is a big part of that, you know, like, so what is the truth? And, you know, and it's been like a key question all year. What is the truth? What is the truth? And we don't always have a clear answer to it. Something else that's really interesting about this conjunction is at 22 degrees of Capricorn, which is the exact degree that the original Saturn-Pluto conjunction took place in January, the biggie. That was the big story of 2020, was that big Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January at 22 degrees. Now Jupiter and Saturn are at 22 degrees, making an exact conjunction to Pallas Athena at 22 degrees.
Wow.
Yes, she is one of the major asteroids. And her story, which I'll tell briefly if we've got time.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I think it's a really very interesting and significant piece of this. Pre-patriarchy, the original story of Pallas Athena is that she was born out of a lake of the mother Thetis, who is a sea goddess, a goddess of the sea. So she's birthed out of the water from her mother's womb. And her mother's name, Thetis, means something like wisdom. In fact, I made a note, wise counsel. She is said to be the goddess of wise counsel, and her daughter, Athena, not Pallas Athena yet, Athena is born out of this. And the land, Libya, where she was born, was the land of the Amazon women. So there's this connection with the Amazons. And her sister was Pallas, an Amazon goddess. And then as time came on and the masculine energy started to ascend and rise to its ascendancy, and we begin to come into the more patriarchal period, then the goddesses, one by one, are sort of diminished and the gods begin to take over. So Zeus, Jupiter, the head god, he took it upon himself. He and Saturn, Kronos, were given to devouring their children to diminish their power and to basically destroy them because they might be competition, you know. So he devoured Thetis. This is now the new story when she was pregnant with Athena. And Athena was then said to have been born, and this is the classic Greek Roman myth that we're told was born out of Zeus's head. So that she's now born out of the masculine deity's head, not out of the womb of the mother of the waters. So, and when she's born with armor, helmet, sword, ready for battle. And it was said that Zeus tricked her into killing her sister Pallas. She was tricked into killing the Medusa, the Gorgon Medusa, who was originally a great goddess of the serpent and is now seen as an evil monster. And if you look into the face of the Medusa, you know, man would be turned to stone. So there's something about Pallas Athena. She's a powerful archetype. She's a warrior archetype, but she's also a goddess of wisdom. But she is now aligned with the patriarchy. So, but her true origins is absolutely of the feminine, and she is absolutely about feminine wisdom and justice. So it's a very interesting story, and I think that her story through 2020 has been quite an important piece of this, and her exact conjunction right now at 22 degrees with Jupiter and Pluto. For those who've been looking deeply into the events of this year, you might recognize like, that's kind of making sense. How the patriarchal mechanism has been swallowing and devouring, and you could even say destroying in different ways the feminine, you know, the earth, nature, food. Like look what's happened to our food. It's just all chemicalized and mass produced, and it's all in cardboard boxes, you know, and cellophane packets now, and so on and so on. So I just wanted to bring that in, you know, I think that's a very interesting piece here, but fundamentally she's a powerful goddess. And when she, as in all of us, when we reconnect with our true feminine origins and our connection with earth and body and natural rhythms and cycles, it brings her, Pallas Athena, back into alignment with who she is as a powerful goddess archetype, who understands how the masculine, and rather than masculine, I use the word patriarchal, because this isn't about, you know, blaming men. It's a patriarchal system.
Yeah.
It's like she understands how it works because she's operated within it.
Yeah.
They've been born out of Zeus's head. So she can kind of work with males and with those systems and structures, but once she reconnects to her true feminine origins and her feminine nature, she can do it with great power within those structures. So it's very interesting piece.
Yeah. Isn't she also an ascended master?
Yes.
In those teachings, yeah.
Exactly. In those teachings, she absolutely is. That's exactly right.
So that asteroid is around with the Jupiter conjunct Pluto aspect?
That's right. And she's been traveling very closely with those Capricorn planets for some time now. But I found it very interesting on this final important conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto, Pallas Athena is there. Now there's one more piece. You think, could there be anything else? The following day, so even though I'm going day by day, like think of this as the whole of November, or particularly the first 2 weeks, sort of from this full moon to the next new moon in 2 weeks' time. There's a great deal happening. And this sort of all happening together, you could say. So on the 14th, Mars, bless his heart, is stationary and begins slowly to turn direct.
Ooh.
So we have had 10 weeks of Mars retrograde in Aries. Now, just to recap a little bit, and I'll look to my notes to get my dates right. On the 28th of June, Mars entered Aries. He'd normally whiz through a sign in 2 months, but no, not this time. 28th of June, he entered Aries, went retrograde on the 10th of September, goes direct again on the 14th of November, and doesn't leave Aries until the 7th of January. So that's a long time. That's like 6.5 months when Mars is powerful in his own sign. But there is a definite shift that's coming as he turns direct. And it's like, okay, Mars, thanks. You've done a lot of amazing work here in us all. And we've all had to face anger, frustration, and, you know, observed all of the clashes and the battles that have been going on. A lot of it underground and behind the scenes, retrograde. But now I think all of these energies together speak of Mercury going direct, Mars going direct, the final Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, this big full moon, speak of something's moving now, like some important piece of work's been done, individually, collectively. And now there's a feeling of, okay, we can begin to move forward in a new way. I'm not at all suggesting it's all over, but something's definitely changing here.
Yeah. You can feel it's different.
You can. And I think we're going to be seeing more and understanding more and going, okay, so that's what's been going on. Yeah. And if we look at our own lives and our own inner world, that's always where we have to, that's really the most important thing.
Yeah.
What's changed in me in these last few months? What's been awoken in me? What shifted? How am I seeing things differently? What am I doing differently? We've all been through so much change. We have all grown and evolved, even if we think we haven't, we have.
Yes.
So much.
Yeah.
It's like we've lived through lifetimes in 2020.
Yeah. It's like 2020 is the year we went to sleep and woke up in Star Trek or something. Or the Matrix or
Star Trek, Matrix, Doctor Who.
World War II, something, all those things. Yeah.
I know.
It's been incredible. Yeah. So that's really interesting for me because, I spend a lot of time talking about people who have unusual experiences, paranormal experiences.
Yes, that's right.
And when they have those experiences, it speeds up their development.
Yes.
And the same things happen with this year. It's like the planet's had a near-death experience and it's speeded up our development. So I wouldn't be surprised, and this is my little prediction, but I mean, just not really a prediction, but just from my own observations of other areas, that people started to become a little bit more psychically and spiritually attuned.
Yes.
Because of what they've been through. It would have activated those and activating their own higher faculties.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a wonderful way to put it. That's very much the case, I think. Yeah. And, we're individual. I'm speaking now individually in here, in each of us, we're not going back to where we were. And that's true collectively, but individually, if we really look like, no, I've changed, something's changed here and I'm moving that way, not back that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wind has changed.
The wind's
changed the tap to our sails.
Yes, I've been listening to a lot of Bob Dylan lately. And I've got his latest album, which I absolutely am loving. It's like Bob Dylan at his best. He went through some patchy periods over the years, but so good. But it reminds me, the times they are changing. That incredible song. Man, those songs he wrote in the 60s, extraordinary.
I must go have a listen to that.
Yeah, go find the new one. It came out a few months ago. It's great.
All right.
if you like Bob Dylan, if that's...
Yeah. I remember I listened to one a couple of months ago, right in the middle of all these restrictions where it was all just fully crazy, was Mad World by Tears for Fears, and it was like, you know, it's
Yes.
mad world.
World.
Yeah, and it was at that time I was really feeling that madness. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the times are changing and changing into when the moon what is it? The age of Aquarius.
Is
I can't think of it now. When
in the
the
seventh
seventh house.
house. That one?
Yes.
Moon. That's right.
Yes.
And Jupiter aligns with Mars. That's right.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yes. But Bula and I are available for hire to sit for singing anytime you like.
Maybe we should start karaoke. And crazy is a good word too. You know, often people refer to Uranus as being crazy. It kind of brings out the crazy, which is a wonderful thing. It helps us to break out of like this sort of serious adherence to rules and strictures and confinements, and because he is the great liberator, awakener. Yeah, let's get a little crazy, you know. It's let our hair down. And
well, that's why we've got these great images behind us today.
exactly. And you know, it reminds me, you know, there's this thing of, you know, during full moon, it can literally bring up in us this desire to go outside and howl at the moon, you know, like the wolves howling at the moon. And the animals all feel it. Well, this is a good one to do a bit of that, you know, head bush, take a drum, you know, if that's possible. It's not possible for us all to do that, but, you know, it's got that sort of energy, like it's not a time to be trying to sort of hold it together.
Yes. And it's a bit indigenous, but on the wild side, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I hear some howling tonight, I'll know coming from your area, your direction.
Exactly. There might be quite a bit of that going on around the place.
Yeah.
You know, there might also be some like quite significant disturbances and disruptions going on too. Like, I mean, Uranus is also electricity and technology.
Yeah. And there was I think Higgins storm chasing was predicting for today electrical storms, severe thunder, but electrical storms. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It is that wild storm energy.
Fascinating how things on the planet sort of connect to all those different energies that the ancients have studied because of the planetary movement for so long, you know.
That's right. That's right. Observation, experience. Yep.
Yep.
And also just tuning in energetically. You know, we all have that capacity within us to just literally tune in.
So there's no more for us for the next 2 weeks, is that it?
Well, that takes us to the new moon on the 15th. So it's like, you know, like day after day, there's this one, to the next new moon, which is in Scorpio. It's at 23 degrees of Scorpio. So remember, we're still in the month of Scorpio. It's still a deep time of deep death and rebirth. And you said before, it's like we're going through a death year, a death rebirth year. We are. It's a collective dark night of the soul. Like, you know, it's almost like there's this collective trauma going on, but out of that can come such regeneration and healing and rebirth and awakening. So it's a beautiful thing. It's challenging. But it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
A long time coming.
Yes. Well, I think that's enough for us anyway for 2 weeks.
I think it is.
That's a lot to take in and percolate on, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Percolate through our systems.
That's right. That's right.
It actually feels a bit more like there's more in this next 2 weeks than there was in the previous 2 weeks somehow. I don't know how I feel that, but
yes,
I do.
And I think a big piece of this, of course, is the US election, which is you know, really coming up. And literally, I mean this, literally anything can happen.
Yep.
Pre-election, election, post-election. And I'm not predicting gloom and doom and awful, but literally anything can happen.
Yeah.
You know, and
We'll just watch this space, basically.
And I think for me, what I keep remembering, you know, after all these shockwaves of this year and so on, is that I keep my focus on the bigger picture as much, you know, while dealing with what's happening right here, but always part of me is aware of the big story, the big story. And that we are in a process that is completely necessary and required for the bigger story to unfold.
Yeah. Keep the eye on the future, but the far future coming out the other end of it.
That's right. Out the other side. That's right.
Yeah. Oh.
And I plan to be around to see it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all your knowledge, sharing that with us. And
You're very welcome.
I learn so much from you every time I listen to what you have to say. So, yeah, you're a wonderful teacher.
Oh, thanks, Cheryl. I so enjoy our chats. Thank you.
Now, you've got a workshop coming up?
I do. On the 6th of December, I'm actually doing, this is an in-house here at my place in Brisbane. I do this every year at the end of the year. I do a whole day looking at the transits and eclipses and energies of the year to come. So 6th of December, we'll be looking at all the planetary movements for 2021. And it's a different story.
Yeah.
Quite a different story to 2020.
Yeah, so I'll put your links again down below this video so people can contact you.
Okay, thanks.
About that. All right. So bye, everyone. Hope you survive the next 2 weeks.
We plan to be back in 2 weeks' time.
We'll be back in 2 weeks for sure. Yeah. All right. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.